What up, YouTube? It's your boy Banks, and we back in the building. You feel me? It's True Talks, cause True Talks. All right, let's get straight right into it. So you already know, man. If you haven't been paying attention, obviously, over the last couple of days and over the last week, there's been just a lot of noise, a lot of NBA talk about where Kevin Durant will go. Because if you obviously been living under the rock, which you shouldn't have been, Katie requested a trade on free agency the day that free agency opened up. And like I said, if you haven't watched my previous video, I've talked about it in kind of detail, probably more different than most people kind of just talked about it. And that was just, click that, video and go watch that. But to summarize it as well, just, people are looking at it from an encore perspective, right? People are looking at KD. Oh my God, KD's weak. He wants to go to the two number one teams. And, now he went to Golden State previously after being down 3-1. And then now, he came to Brooklyn, granted, but once it got tough, he took the easy way out and he left. And I'm like, dog, what are y'all talking about? Y'all acting as if this is not what the new era is about. This is not what the new era is about. If you want to talk about on court now, and I don't like to do this, but if we want to bring up, oh, not taking the easy way out. You're telling me LeBron took the hardest way out? Every time his big three, first he left Cleveland and went to Miami. And the big three, granted, went to 4 straight NBA finals, but they won 2 out of the 4. And then the last one that they lost, couldn't they go there again? No, he sees that, okay, Wade might be deteriorating, Chris Bosh. And what does he do? Once it's getting tough, they lost. He cut and made a new big 3 in Cleveland. Once it's getting tough, he left and went to LA. This is what I'm talking about. Y'all can't have your cake and eat it too. Y'all can't move the goalposts. Because a lot of the complaints that Katie is doing is what LeBron be doing, what a lot of these guys be doing. You know what I'm saying? The only ones who don't really be doing that is Dame and Bradley Beal. But then now they say, oh, they're chasing the money. Come on now. You can never win. You don't want them to go leave. Then the ones that stay, now you want them to go leave. You make up your mind, yo. Anyways, that's an on-court perspective. And even if people want to come up with this on-court narrative for KD and, oh, Banks, you're just defending KD, it's not about that. I know I choose based on what's happening. I can understand what the reality and what the real thing is happening, right? Real eyes, real lies, real guys, and real lies. You feel me? So at the end of the day, what's happening is my eyes, the trained eye, is not focusing on the on-court thing because that's just the surface level conversation right now. The real conversation is clearly what's happening. If you have real eyes and you've been paying attention and you have the trained eye, you can understand that for the most part, what's been happening is that KD signed an extension. That's what's not. I don't know why people aren't talking about that enough. KD signed an extension, a 5-year extension. So if KD signed a 5-year extension, clearly he's committed to Brooklyn. What superstar signs a 5-year extension and they're not committed? Steph, you see him sign extensions. You seen Kawhi just sign one. Paul George just signed one. And you see why Kawhi and Paul George are intact and happy together? Because both signed extensions. It's not that Kawhi signed an extension and then they were like, oh, no, we're not going to sign PG. You know what I mean? Kawhi would be like, are you stupid? That's his right-hand man, right? So you could see that this is kind of what the conversation is about. Kyrie, obviously, they feel like Kyrie is disrespected. Because, again, it's not the fact that Kyrie didn't get an extension. It's the fact that you decided not to give him an extension after it's clear that KD said, yo, if you don't give him an extension, I'm out. And then you tested his bluff. That's what the problem really is. It's not the fact that you just didn't sign him an extension. Because they could have a stalemate. You didn't sign him an extension, but then now the players have all the power. If you didn't sign him an extension and then the players go, yo, the man that signed an extension, the main guy or whatever, and KD will also leave if you don't sign me an extension. That normally gets the deal done. The Nets don't have the leverage, even though people think that the Nets do. The Nets don't have the leverage. In this era, the players, player mobility, how players can dictate what they want, can ask out. They could even sit out and not play. You see when Ben Simmons, you've seen a lot of stuff that been happening. The players dictate what's going on for the most part, right? So when you look at it from that perspective, you got to understand that you got to understand that now, like it's just a you good, you good. You got to understand that for the most part now that the players kind of control and dictate what's gonna happen. So if you don't appease to the players, automatically they up out of here. And if they up out of here, you lose ticket sales, stuff in your seat. Just revenue. Period. Like you're not gonna get a ring for the city, and that's what Katie and Kyrie are like. Yo, we want to play together. We don't want to play in Brooklyn because y'all are basically sussing. Y'all are joking it out. Y'all are playing with what's going on here. So basically, like they're like, we don't have time for that shit. So when you look at it from that perspective, that's kind of what I'm focusing on because that's the reality of the situation. It's not an on-court and that's what the narrative has been for this past, however, is about the on-court, oh, Katie leaving, not a leader, and this and that. Like, dog, that's not the case. If you look, he signed an extension. He's ready to lock in, and Kyrie wants to sign an extension, and they want to go in together and run it. Not run from the grind and go to work. But when the organization is trying to flirt and pick and choose and be like, yo, we don't even care if they're here. We okay to lose Katie and Kyrie. We don't want to deal with what we did last year as if they don't have an exemption, as if they didn't make the mistake in not playing part-time. Right? They made the mistake because eventually they had to now play in part-time. Because at least, take it in. He played part-time for the last quarter of the season. Right? So imagine this Kyrie was playing part-time for the whole season. His rhythm, he would have been at least in more rhythm and in more for playoff atmosphere versus the Boston Celtics. So when they double team KD and stuff like that, triple team him, Kyrie, even when he was getting double team here and there, he would be able to at least overcome somewhat because they only lost, by 5-point margins almost every game? Like it came down to 1 or 2 possessions every game. So without Ben Simmons, without Joe Harris. So, like, that's why I'm like, dog, you got to understand, like, without their no defense. Like, y'all have to understand what's going on here and kind of just pay attention and have the trained eye. So when you see, obviously, they want to run it back. Kyrie says, I want to stay. And now the organization is just, they're off it. They're clearly off it. They don't care if they lose both. They just want to rebuild and, they don't care. They really don't care. So when you throw that out there and you say that to these type of superstars, why would I win you a ring? Give you a nicer profit margin, nicer revenue, and do like basically nice the organization because at the end of the day, they don't have a ring. Brooklyn doesn't have a ring. So I'm gonna give you basically your first ring in Brooklyn and just have you guys overcome being the laughing stock and whatever the case is and one of the low tier organizations in terms of just Brooklyn itself as a new organization. I'm gonna do that for you, and we're not gonna do that. We're gonna play somewhere else, and clearly that's what's happening. It's an organization owner versus player battle. That's what was happening at hand, and it's clear. If you have the trained eye, you could see that. So that's why I didn't really focus on all of this type of stuff. But with that context, going into everything now, how does it go now? Where is he gonna go? What's his destination? What's gonna happen for the most part? And when you look at it from that perspective, honestly, like, when I think that is going to be unfortunate for what KD wants. And in this situation, it's like, even though the Nets have a leverage in certain situations and certain scenarios in terms of the trades, KD also has leverage in certain situations and certain scenarios of the trade. Like, for instance, the Nets are asking for so much. And because they're starting out asking for so much, KD right now, because the season hasn't started and training camp and stuff like that, he's not going ham and like creating a storm, doing, kind of what James Harden did in Houston. He could just act like he's injured. There's so many things KD could do to force his trade. So like the Nets don't really ever have the leverage. But what happens is the Nets have the leverage in terms of I have KD. Y'all got to give me the world for him. And you can see that that's what they're trying to do. That's the play they're trying to make where, okay, if we do trade you to Phoenix, we want Devin Booker, not just DeAndre, and don't cut it. We want Devin Booker, maybe Mike Howe. We want Bear and some picks as well too. And when we get that, we now trade KD for him. Right? Same thing when they're looking at Minnesota. We want Karl Anthony Towns. We want Anthony Edwards. We want Bear picks and etc. Like everywhere they're trying to trade, they're trying to demand the world for him. You get what I'm saying? For the most part. So when you look at it from that perspective, you got to understand that, like, honestly, there might be a stalemate with this situation. Even with the Raptors, they want Pascal, they want OG, they probably want Bear, and I don't think Masai's gonna do that. Like Masai's the same guy just to keep Kawhi, to make him re-sign, get Paul George, and to get Westbrook and have a big three. You might have to give up Pascal and OG. He didn't even want to do it. So obviously KD's a different breed, and you getting KD also means, remember, Kyrie opted in for 1 year, so next year wherever he goes, he's probably gonna follow KD wherever he goes. So it's kind of like a package deal just by getting KD for the most part, right? And whether even Kyrie goes to the Lakers, don't listen like all that media stuff. Even if he goes and he gets traded, which I don't think will happen for a 1 year rental. Especially even Westbrook too taking on that money. Like I don't think that they will do it. And I don't think the Lakers have the package to do that. That's a different discussion for a different day. But wherever Kyrie is to go, if he is to get traded, he's in a 1 year situation. It's a 1 year rental. So he's just gonna go wherever KD's gonna go. So like they're obviously moving together. They're gonna play and hoop together. That's not done as a duo. Like they have unfinished business clearly, right? And they're at their point in their careers where they don't want to hop around all the time. They want to have finish their business they have together because they feel that as a duo they're elite, and they are. Just it was unconventional situation in Brooklyn the last year, and in the year before that they were 1 foot away from going to the finals. So we know they would have beat the Hawks. They were 1 foot away, not 1 foot away, inches away from going to the finals, and that was without Kyrie. And if Kyrie never got injured, we already know what would happen. They were up 2-0, even if they lost game 3 with Kyrie getting injured, which I don't think they would have lost. I think they would have won in 5 easily. Light work, you know what I mean? Light work. So when you look at it from that perspective, man, like I know people wanted me to talk in depth about the Toronto trade and if the Raptors could actually get something and put a package together and throw it out. But again, at the end of the day, it's not about what these teams want to offer. It's about what the Nets are asking for because they have to pull the trigger at the end of the day. And it's not that the Nets are doing this isolated. The Nets also have to agree and see eye to eye with KD before they sign this off. It's not a one, even though KD don't have a trade clause, I don't know if he does or not, but it's as if he has a trade clause because they're working together because KD right now could just be like, can tell, let's say they're trading for Phoenix and he sees what the trade is going to be and he tells them, yo, if you want this trade and there's nobody on the team that's with me, I'm not staying, yo. So, like, then now the Phoenix Suns are like, okay, we're apprehensive. We're not going to basically do that trade if we're going to get KD and have nobody, and then he's not even going to want to stay. Like, no one's going to want to do that trade. You don't want to erupt your whole team with bare assets for KD and basically have it where you're back in a worse hole, even though you have a greater player. You're in a worse hole with no assets. Then you got to trade him again because he's unhappy. So, like the Nets are in a situation, even though they're asking for the world, regardless, KD has to sign off on it. That's why they're working together. So that's why I'm like, KD has leverage, and the Nets do have leverage at the same breath because they have an elite talent in KD, but you can't ask for too much in this situation. And then who's going to have the best offer? And what happens in this situation is when the Nets ask for too much and the longer it takes, now the less the other teams have to offer because they know that, yo, the longer with time, if you do this deal right away, you could get the most. The longer time awaits, the longer time passes, the more havoc that KD creates, and then the more time, now it's like, okay, you have to do this deal. You have to do this deal. You have to do this deal. And then now you end up getting and doing the deal for way less than what you would have done originally at the beginning for guys who actually were willing to do it for this kind of magnitude. And it just decreases. To the public, it doesn't look like a decrease in terms of the package, in terms of the deal. But if teams were to let you know what they actually had at day one versus what they had and what they actually did the trade for in day, whatever it is, day 50, day 60, it definitely was not the same as day one. That normally always happens. So when you look at it from that perspective, man, like, I think what's going to happen most likely is that it's going to be a stalemate. It's unfortunate that, it might happen like that. And then the thing is, the Nets do have a great team. Even with Ben Simmons coming back, with Joe Harris coming back, like, they do have a great team. And again, Kyrie's still on the roster. So what happens is if they get a stalemate, then the team plays out, and this might happen. They actually might end up playing the whole season. And like, KD and Kyrie are hoopers. If they're playing together, whatever happened in the offseason, they might just forget about that shit and just maybe they do get to a conference finals. Maybe they do end up winning a ring. And then what happens then? You know what I'm saying? So, like, this is one of those situations that there's definitely a possibility that everything could be water under the bridge as time passes, where they don't do the trade because the offers decrease, and then Katie and them just have camaraderie in training camp, and then Seth is there, and they have all these guys there, and you know what I mean, and then they're just hooping, and just like they just forget about it as time passes, and they kind of obviously it's like, okay, we want out, but like as they're hooping and maybe they start winning games, like this could go down that road, or this could play out where they just hoop and they just one pulls, oh, I have an injury, I'm not trying to do that, and they're actually serious and standing on their word where they don't want to play and win for Brooklyn. Period. And then what happens is the organization doesn't have their leverage, and they're gonna have to do the deal for less, and then boom. You know what I mean? You're in a worse case scenario than what you would have been if you just traded him with open arms from the get-go. You know what I'm saying? So like there's a lot of different routes that this could play out. Obviously, it's kind of hard to call it, but for the foreseeable future right now, I'll be surprised if a KD and Kyrie deal is done in the next couple of weeks, even before training camp. I'll be surprised because the Nets feel that they could ask for the world, and that's where teams are like, dog, I know KD is elite, but like, are we gonna gut our whole team? Can we get other guys? Like, who are we gonna really get? If you're gonna gut our whole team and trade the next best star that would be around him, it's like, are we really gonna pull that trigger when we are already in a contender situation? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of tough. Like, I think the other teams are smart and they're just gonna wait it out. And honestly, we could get KD and still have our core by just waiting it out, and that's what's gonna happen. And the Nets are gonna be in for a rude awakening. And you've seen this happen before. You've seen this happen a plethora of times, right? You've seen it happen a lot of times. So like even with the James Harden, Ben Simmons trade, if they did it right away before James Harden looked weaker and weaker and weaker, they probably would have got more or gave less. The Sixers, they probably would have kept Steph Curry, stuff like that. But now when you waited and Ben Simmons is not playing, you lose your leverage. You get in a situation where you have to probably trade him because he's not playing, and then now you have to throw in more just to get James Harden, right? So like that's kind of what happens in these situations. So for the most part, we'll see how it transpires. We'll see how it plays out. Again, I just think it's gonna be stalemate. I'll be surprised if a deal is done. And Kyrie's situation is a whole different situation. But for the most part, it's a tandem. It's a duo. You can't really break it up. And if you break it up, they'll just meet again next year, right? We'll meet again type of thing. So, we'll see if this is what elite looks like. The Nets, I don't know what they're doing, yo. In time, in history, give it a couple years, the Nets are going to regret this whole shit. They only won't regret it if somehow they just wake up and they wake up and smell the coffee and they be like, yo, go apologize to Katie, and they just end up keeping Katie and Kyrie because they can keep them. They don't have to trade them, right? And then and kind of appease to Katie and Kyrie and be like, yo, don't do this, injury type of shit. Just play, fam. Let's win. We can win water under the bridge. If they do that, that's their best way of resolving all of this. But for the most part, if they continues this way, this is going to be one of the biggest mistakes that they've ever made. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're going to really go back and look at it and be like, dog, this is horrendous. Like, this is going to be, they're going to regret a lot of things. They're going to look back in history and be like, yo, the Nets have to be one of the dumbest organizations in the history of the NBA, like, to do this. To see what Katie and the play, come on now, like, and to pull this off just because what does Kyrie have to earn? What does he have to earn to get an extension? Just the fact that he's elite and Katie is his boy already earns him an extension. What are we talking about? If that's what Katie wants, no long talk. No long talk. You think an organization really wanted to give AD the bag like that? When he's injury prone like that? LeBron says it's him. Give it to him. No long talk. What are we talking about? That's called a great organization. Whether you regret it later, it don't matter. Because you wouldn't even get to this point. You'll be in the lottery because LeBron will leave. The main guy will leave. What are you talking about? But you sometimes have to keep this guy just by this guy. Same thing. Yo, we want this head coach. Okay, whatever coaching stuff you want, even though this guy's elite, you deal with it. This is how it goes. If you know somebody and that guy vouches for you and you want me, then you keep him too. That's how the world works. And even in real life, in what any job, this is how it goes, yo. I'm not moving until if you keep him with me. That's how it goes, yo. Like, come on now. And then let's not even get to the fact that Kyrie's actually elite. He did 50, 40, 90 the year before. Even part-time, he was getting 60s, 50s. Like, what are we talking about, yo? What are we really talking about? And now the exemption is out the way. The only thing maybe you don't want to sign him or extend him if there was no exemption. There's an exemption, fam. What are we talking about? What is this to discuss? Anyways, it is what it is. We'll see. It's True Talks. It's True Talks. Share, like, and subscribe. We out here. There's no doubt here. There's no drought here. You feel me? I appreciate y'all. You already know. Bruh, so what elite looks like, well, it's not, but it is at the same time. We'll see. And hopefully y'all can see this perspective and, like, spread the word. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. You feel me? I appreciate y'all. You already know. It is what it is. We out here. There's no doubt here. There's no drought here. You feel me? Let's get it, boy. We'll see where he goes. And I'm out, man.